All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me here today on this episode. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button right down below. In fact, hit that bell notification that's right next to it to be notified of upcoming episodes of The Urban Gardener as we continue growing. Today, what we're going to be doing is a part of our garden tour for the summer of 2019. We're going to focus on our tomatoes and our peppers. We have lots of different varieties of tomatoes and peppers growing in our gardens, including our Prax cherry tomato, which is basically a big, about 4 or 5 different plants, all grouped here in a bunch, growing some really great tomatoes, as you just saw. I just filled up this container just now. I'm gonna have to get another one in order to finish taking off all of the ripe tomatoes that are coming off of that cherry tomato plant there. So we're getting some really excellent production from the cherry tomatoes. Some of our other varieties, as we continue this garden tour, we'll take a look at and see where they are and how they're progressing along and growing, as well as our peppers. Now there's some that are growing really well and some that aren't doing well or aren't growing at all, in fact, sort of like our Carolina Reaper, which I usually each year kind of have a challenge with this plant, as I want to grow some really great pods. It's setting off lots of really great flowers, but I'm just not seeing any pods forming quite yet. They seem to kind of fall off as they're growing, but there's still a lot more possibilities. Maybe the plant will produce just a little bit later on, but right now it's not. So we'll take a look at some of the different plants that we've got growing around the different gardens and kind of see where they're going as well. We've got lots of great different pepper varieties as well as the tomatoes, and some of them are producing some really great pods, and some of them are probably getting very close to being harvested. So let's get growing and take a look at all these different great varieties that we've got growing here at our urban gardens. So to start us off again here today for our summer garden tour of the tomatoes and peppers, the Prax cherry tomato plants. Now there's a few plants in here growing, making basically one big bush. And what I do is I just basically let some of these really ripe ones down in the plant stay on the plant until they fall into the soil. Basically rot there in the soil over winter time, and the seeds get in there and grow back up again next season. We'll have more Prax cherry tomatoes next year. And also our pepper plants there, growing in our 5-gallon water wicking bucket systems. Put an iCard right there for that video. You can go check out on how to put together these 5-gallon water wicking buckets. They work really well, and I recommend them for small space gardening. Here we've got a purple bell pepper next to our, this is the super heavyweight, so it's a green bell pepper, and it'll produce some pretty large peppers, as we'll see here in just a moment on one of our other plants. And again, the Carolina Reaper, as I said, it's got lots of little flowers on it forming, but they're just falling off. Hopefully, maybe as it cools down a little bit, we are dealing with some really, really hot weather at the moment. Maybe they'll actually form some pods. Now also in the back patio area here, we've got a couple of more pepper plants growing out of our 5-gallon buckets. This one here is a Dos Deslandes pepper. I got this pepper and the other pepper from a pepper grower, Brando Toe, on YouTube. And I got these from him, seeds from him, several years ago, and they produce these really, really delicious, long, big, long peppers. And these will turn red, and as they turn red and ripen, they are really one of the most delicious peppers you'll eat. So sweet, like candy. And they look like they might be a hot pepper, but they're sweet as can be. Right next to the Dos Deslandes is another one of those super heavyweights. We've got a couple of peppers here forming, one other small one there. If you look up here, we've got several. I mean, look at them all. They're just popping up and forming all over the place. So here in the next coming month or so, we'll be pulling off some pretty good peppers off of this plant here for sure. Check this one out. As I mentioned before, they can produce some really big green bell peppers. I mean, look at the size of that thing. That's my hand. That's my hand. I mean, that's huge. And it's not even ripening yet, so this thing's still growing, possibly to get even larger. So hopefully the plant can handle a lot of the weight as some of these other peppers start getting big themselves too. We'll see. I'll just have to stake it up or tie it up to our trellis that we've got here in the back. But yeah, look forward to seeing if we can get some more of those guys. So as we saw in our last episode, I'll put a night card up above for that. We got our scarlet runner beans growing up this wood ladder here in the back patio. Right next to it, we've got one of our other tomato varieties we've got growing in the patio area here. And this one here is our super steak. And this one I've got growing just in a larger, probably around a 7 or more gallon pot there. It's growing really, really well. Some little tomatoes in there getting forming. And we've got one already kind of going pretty good already, with another one just below it. So far that's all I'm seeing as far as tomatoes on this plant. But we do got like more and more flowers forming here and up here. So I suspect as the weather cools down just a little bit, as you can see, as I showed earlier in the clip, it's already almost 100 degrees out right now. So they're just trying to get through this heat right now at the moment. Some of your larger tomatoes are going to have a little bit more of a struggle growing through the heat like this in the summertime. So, all right, on the back side of our patio, we've got a couple of more tomato plants growing here. We've got a black cherry variety of tomato. It's putting off lots of these really dark cherry tomatoes. These are really, really delicious. Gonna have to harvest these up here real soon. along with more of them throughout the plant. It's producing lots and lots of tomatoes. So we'll be getting lots of really great production off of this one. A really delicious cherry tomato. And another dark tomato, this one here. Again with the, as you see in the back alleyway when we get to it, the brandy wine type of tomatoes, a different type of leaves. This one here is a true black brandy wine. And these ones basically just volunteer up for me every year as they drop ripe tomatoes into the bucket there and grow back up the next season. They've done this now, similar to the Prax cherry tomato there in the back alleyway, the last 3 seasons now. So really, really great tomato. To see here, I think there's an actual tomato hiding in here somewhere. Oh yeah, we got one back there. Oh, here we go. There's one right there. Nice big one coming up right there. Another little one in here. And it's still growing and growing. In fact, it's getting ready to climb up and try to head towards the fence line there. Lots of new flowers. So in our very back alleyway part of the garden where we set up some more of those 5-gallon water wicking buckets, we've got some pepper plants that we planted out here to get some of that really good full sun, full all day long sun here. And in these buckets, keeping them nice and moist during this really hot weather, they're really, really thriving. As we can see in here, starting to produce some peppers. This here is a purple beauty variety. It's a bell pepper, sweet bell pepper. Grows in this really amazing dark purple color, as you can tell. I'm getting some decent sized peppers off of this one here. But the same variety over here on this side, we're getting a lot of peppers. We've got a lot of different pods on this plant. As you can see, just a little bit smaller though, as they're pretty much full size and ripening up at this time. So this is about as big as they're gonna get. But this plant's got a lot of them on there. Next to that one, we've got a basic California Wonder you'll see in a lot of the garden centers at the beginning of the season as they're selling their pepper starts. I picked up this one at one garden center, and as it was on sale at the end of their selling season. Getting lots of nice little flowers there. Not very many peppers yet. We do got one growing here, getting started. And possibly another one there. That's about it right now. Oh wait, one more. Here's another one back here. So we got another one or two kind of getting ready and starting to form on the plant there. But again, as I said, similar to the tomatoes, weather will cool down just a little bit more into more acceptable temperature range, and these guys will start producing again. Now, over here, we've got a pepper that's just really struggling. It's not doing very well at all. It just keeps dying back and drying out. It is well watered and kept moist, and as with all the other peppers, you know, I let it dry out a bit before I water them again. But this one's just really struggling along, isn't doing very well. So I'm not sure. We'll see how well it does later on as the weather cools down a little bit more. Like I said, with the other plants, maybe we'll get something going out of it. Here we've got a variety called the Yellow Monster. Now, these are supposed to be big, long, yellow, sweet peppers. See a few starting to form in here. They'll grow a little more elongated and ripen into a nice yellow color. And you can hear this here, the tomato plant is just like the ones we just showed a little bit ago in our back patio space. This is a Prax cherry tomato. Tomato I started from seed, and it was just kind of a weak little small seedling that I had with all the other ones, and it's proven to continue to be that way throughout its lifespan here. So it's not really growing very well for me, not like all the other plants are, but we are getting some tomato production, and they are good size like a Prax cherry should be. So the size of the plant hasn't mattered at all in the outcome of the fruits, so that's a good positive thing. And over here we've got another variety I picked up at the garden center along with that California Wonder. We got a sriracha pepper plant doing really well, putting off lots of pods, lots and lots of them. This plant's really stocked full of some really nice looking pepper pods there. A sriracha variety, something I haven't grown before, so when I saw it there I thought, well, let's check it out and see how well they do. This plant seems to be doing really well. Kind of a quick update there from the last episode as well that we did. Our beans are really starting to grow and get ready to take off here in our little buckets and our trellis that we built out. Just a simple little do-it-yourself trellis project we did in the last episode. Next to that, we've got this tomato plant here. And you remember from the last update we did with our tomatoes and whatnot. This one hasn't been looking good at all this year. We do got one fruit on here. Kind of looking funky with a bunch of wrinkles and cat face like you wouldn't believe. But it's growing away. All these leaves are just curled. I've been dealing with some sort of pest problem of some sort. I know I've seen a lot of whitefly going around, but I'm not too sure if that's really going to set this plant back so much. As far as, I mean, at least how it looks. It's not really bushy like the other varieties we'll see in a moment here of the very same kind I've got growing over in our back fence line. But it is continuing to climb up and up and up. As you can see, we're getting more and more flowers. Again, the same hope is that as it cools down, maybe we'll get some more fruit production, but not too sure with this one. Now here along the back fence line, the inside of the fence line, we've got our pumpkin we're growing this year. Now, I direct seeded this pumpkin just as I've done with all of my other pumpkins I've grown in the last couple of years here. And it just really, you know, it's got a pumpkin, as you can see in there. We'll take a look at it, but it's not growing as big of a plant or as big of as a pumpkin as it should be. This is supposed to be a really large pumpkin. At least that's what the seed was that I was supposed to have gotten. Last year's pumpkins were a lot larger than this one here. Now, it just doesn't seem to be growing at a very fast pace like what I would be expecting for such a large pumpkin. It's still on the vine, it's still growing, so we'll see what happens with it. But I don't know. Now here is our first tomato of our row of tomatoes we've got here on the back fence line. And I'll show you here, we got About 10 different varieties of tomatoes growing along this back fence line here. Now the first one here is the same variety as that tomato we just looked at over by the beans in the alleyway there. The one with all the curled leaves and everything. As you can see, this one's got a little bit of kind of leaf curl similar to what's going on with the other plant, but as you can tell, this plant is a lot more alive. It's got a lot more green. They're not as curled. I've seen some of the newer leaves are looking really nice too. And also, well, that one doesn't look like a very good start, but we've got a bunch of different little tomatoes that are growing inside the plant there. Back in here. So this one's definitely producing more tomatoes. It's growing a lot bigger. It's got the same sort of conditions. It's getting really good full sun as the other one is. It's being fed the same, watered the same, and I don't know, it's just not growing as well. Let's take a look down here at the bottom inside the container there. Looks like we've got a melon of sorts growing in there from our cantaloupes. And we've got some watermelons growing right in here as well. We've got another cantaloupe down here. Yeah, so we're definitely getting those. Oh, another little one right there. So some are starting to form off of this plant here, but with a lot of these other plants and watermelons, there isn't much going on with them, just a bunch of growth. They're spreading around all over, as you can see. We got to kind of mow around them, and they're just vining out and around, and all the weeds are just really growing like crazy around all of the plants there. So, as has been said in my video I put out a couple episodes ago showing the different beans and whatnot, people talked about how my garden looks so great and everything, no weeds and no bugs, no pressures like that, but no, I got tons of weeds. As you'll see here real quick, we're gonna talk about this big monster for a second before we finish up talking about the tomatoes there. Look at this big monster. This thing was just a little tiny thing not too long ago, and all of a sudden just blew up, completely blew up. Leaves are huge. Take a look down here. Look at these zucchinis growing down here. You got a couple of pretty large ones that I need to really take off of the plant. I mean they're significantly good size. In fact, probably take all three of them. That'll be a really good one there too. And we've got several others I can see in there getting ready to grow, so we'll take those ones off of there, let the plant focus its energy on all of those new ones. Keep picking them and they'll keep growing. Now in the last episode, the part 1 of our garden tour, I talked about powdery mildew on our spaghetti squash. And here I want to show got a pretty significant amount growing here up on this side of the zucchini here. To the leaves there, as you can see, all got some pretty good mildew, and it's kind of spreading just a little bit more towards the back there, as I'm sure it's going to really, yep, you can start seeing it a little bit on those other leaves. But again, I'm just kind of rolling with it and seeing how well the plant perseveres through the pressure. Just something I'll kind of take notes on for next year's garden. And again, down here more cantaloupe and melons and whatnot growing here. Just not producing much of anything. Bit late in the season for me to even worry about getting it. So in the long run, I got some ground cover to go along with some of my weeds there. But let's go back and talk about the rest of these tomatoes here. We've got these ones here just producing a lot of really, really nice tomatoes all over the plant. In fact, some are just now starting to ripen up. This here is the Volkov variety. Oh, look at that. In fact, right down in there, there's another melon. Another melon growing inside of there. They're wrapping themselves around. I'm sure it's the same plant as the other one there too. Yeah, this Volkov has some really nice round fruits on here. So yeah, I'm really liking what I'm seeing off of this plant, plus lots of new growth. It's getting really, really tall up there, so it's continuing to grow. Lots of new growth, lots of new flowers, new little tomatoes forming there. Now right over here, look at this one. Stretching all the way up there now, up over, and probably gonna start heading over the fence line here soon. But this is the variety Rapunzel, another kind of grape cherry tomato type tomato, grown on Ray Browning's Praxis 55712 channel. And really starting to produce and ripen up and everything, as the cherry tomatoes and those cherry tomato varieties, like you saw with the Prax cherry tomato as well, you know, they produce quite a bit, and you know, they ripen up and you get a lot of good fresh tomatoes, especially during a lot of this warm season and everything. So they're always ahead of all of your other tomatoes, being smaller varieties. Really delicious though too. And this guy here is just another one of the Prax cherry tomatoes we've already seen there. And over here, kind of hiding in the shade right now, kind of lucking out actually, hiding in the shade. Today is a day where we're gonna be over 100 degrees today. I'm sure we're pretty close right now. Yeah, this tomato got a couple of really nice round tomatoes, except for there, you see some sort of bug is already getting a taste off of that tomato there too. So I don't know, we got a couple on there, and again, some good new growth and everything, so we'll be looking to see if we get more fruits forming here real soon. There's one of our sunflowers here. Take a look at these guys. It is massive. Look over here. Those things are, well, I mean, if it was standing up straight, I'm sure it'd be well over 15 plus feet tall. They are kind of leaning over with all their weight. I think what I'll do here in a bit here after I shoot this video is kind of pin it up against the fence like I did with the other one behind it. Yeah, still putting out some new flowers and all of that. Bees are just loving it. And a lot of these other flowers have pretty much been spent, pollinated. Seeds are forming, be drying out here a bit, and then after the bees are all done with these things, the birds take over. All right, next tomato down the line we've got here is a super steak, same variety as the one that we have in the big black 7+ gallon container in the back patio. This one here, I'm sure because of the shade or whatnot, is, I don't know, actually, you know, it's still a pretty good size. I mean, it's growing up through here. It seems like the other ones just seems a little bigger and healthier, but this one's climbing up there. It's gonna reach the top of the fence line pretty soon. It's producing some It's actually producing more tomatoes though than what is on the other plant, so that's really what counts actually when you're growing your plants there. And over here, this one here, if you remember, we got a different type of tomato leaf pattern there. It's more of like a flat, large. The leaves are kind of separated a bit more, not as pointy or as the other tomato leaves, but this is a Brandywine variety of tomato. In fact, this is the true black Brandywine. Grown these the last couple of seasons. They're really, really delicious. These tomatoes will, when they start to ripen up, they'll ripen up into a really dark purple, deep dark color. Very, very delicious. Check this out though. This branch here broke, and the branch just fell over and is still continuing to grow, still continuing to produce the tomatoes, and they're growing and developing just fine. Tomatoes are a very, very resilient plant. They can handle a little bit of damage. Down here we got some kale that was a volunteer with a cucumber plant that's somewhere down here kind of growing along underneath of everything. Don't know if there's any. No, it just kind of volunteered up along with the cucumbers when I was planting those out, so I decided to just plant it out here with everything else. Now this tomato variety here, these nice small round tomatoes. See this one at the top. And they get to be good medium-sized tomatoes, and they're still growing, still developing right now, still ripening up. And this is the Oregon Spring variety, starting to just produce lots of different fruits. So I really like this one here, not just because it's called Oregon Spring, but they are really delicious tomatoes. Now, the last two tomatoes here along the row here are our paste tomatoes. We grow a San Marzano variety of tomato. And we got lots of nice fruits here. Lots of them growing on this plant, still growing and developing and coming up, heading towards the top of the fence there. So lots more growth, lots more fruit, lots more to come from the plant. Let's see here. Oh, nice dark sunflower there, but behind it we've got our other San Marzano. It's got plenty of fruits growing all over the plant. They get to be pretty good size tomatoes too. Those ought to be starting to ripen up here real soon. Down below here, now I talked about this in our first part of our summer garden tour. I told you I would show you this plant, is the spaghetti squash plant that I planted here. I don't know if I showed video of this when it was really young, but out of all of the plants that I had, this one took the worst beating from all of the snails and all of the slugs, and had the hardest time getting started. But a vining squash plant, once it gets past that pressure, once it gets growing, they just take off. If you remember, on the other side in part one of the garden tour, there is corn growing on the other side, and all around the base of the corn down there is this plant that's made itself through the fence line somewhere here and is growing really wild all over on the other side as well. So that's just amazing. It's one of the cool things about gardening, is getting to see this sort of things in action. Now, it may not produce much for me and everything, but I really, look at that, see, it's still going through the fence there. But I'm really encouraged to see plants like this be able to persevere through pressure and really get growing. Now, there might be fruit in there I haven't seen. I haven't gotten in there and looked around. In fact, I'm probably positive there is somewhere in there. So there we've got our carport rooftop there. Nice flat surface. Really great place if you want to take advantage of the space and grow some things, especially in like our 5-gallon water wicking containers, as we've done for the last couple of years. We've had our pepper garden up on top of the rooftop there. However, I rent this place, and my landlord decided that it wasn't a really good idea to have them up there. I disagreed. They win. But now we have our pepper garden down below here. As you can see, we've got about 14 different plants, different varieties of peppers. Real quick, look at this. This is that spaghetti squash, still just going crazy. In fact, starting to head up the fence over there. That's just amazing. Yeah, we've got some really great peppers growing this year. Just kind of go down the line and take a look at them there. Now, similar to what's on our back patio, we've got here the Dos de Landes. This is a long pepper. Okay, you see there? Just a long pepper. These are still growing, still developing. They'll ripen into a red color, a nice deep red. When they get ripened to red, they are literally as sweet as candy. They're just delicious, delicious sweet peppers. I mean, they look all long and like they'd be a hot pepper, but those are very, very sweet peppers, delicious peppers, one of my favorites. I was really glad to get those peppers from another YouTube gardener, Brand Oto. Same with this variety, same as on the back patio as well. We've got our super heavyweight variety. Let's see here. Growing big, giant bell peppers. This one's got several different peppers growing on the plant. And look at that. And that's just getting started. That'll be just as big as the one we saw on the back patio real soon. Next to it, we've got a Anaheim. As you can see, we got one pepper down here already starting to ripen. It's turning a nice red color there. We've got lots of different pods growing on here. Lots more growing. And this plant's just putting off a lot of different pepper pods there. As you can see up here, lots of new ones just getting started. So yeah, this plant's going to be really, really producing. Let's see here, next to it, we've got our Devil's Brain. I grew this one, I think I've just actually grown this over the last couple of seasons, and there's a little pod there getting ready to form. One there too. Looks like there'll be several coming up here real soon. Now, this is a super hot pepper variety. It's one of the super hots that really produces really, really well. Now let's go back over here on this side real quick. Take a look at this plant next to our Dos de Landes. This is the Chinese 5-color. It's got these really amazing pepper flowers that are purple. Just love that color. Lots of different pods, and as you can see, we've got some orange color here, some cream color. There's the purple, lots of the purple.
fact, I think that's probably just how they come out when they first start forming, and then they probably change into colors as they ripen up. That's what I'm seeing here. But yeah, we got this one from viewer Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. This is a really amazing plant. So glad it's in the garden this year. It just brings some really awesome color to our pepper garden. And right next to that one is a really big producer as well. Look at these pods. These are cool looking pods. This is a Scotch bonnet. And I mean, there's just a ton of peppers just crowded up in here. And this, gotta kind of loosen them up a little bit too. They get all kind of bunched up and tight together, but there's just a ton of peppers growing on this plant. Next to it, we've got a plant called the Tequila Sunrise. They got kind of a long pointy pod, as you can see here. Kind of like a jalapeno in a way, but as you can see with all the pods throughout the plant, they're all pointing straight up towards the sun. I suppose that's how I got the name Tequila Sunrise. But yeah, it's really cool. It's the cool thing about peppers is just the diversity of plants and pods and the way they grow, the way the pods form. I mean, they growing up. That's just really cool. Now, right back across again next to the Devil's Brain, we've got the Chocolate Habanero. Now this one, over the last couple of years too, I've tried growing. Has not been a very good producer, but you can see we do got a little pod there. See a little pod back here, and I see a couple more there, so looking really good for some good production off of this. These pods are a nice dark color. Regular habanero with a dark color. And next to the habanero here, we've got our jalapeno. There's lots and lots of pods. Jalapenos are always really good producers. Starting to ripen up as well now. Lots more pods up in the plant, more to come. Yeah, looking really good on the jalapeno. And that's where we're gonna go right back across from this jalapeno. Take a look at another jalapeno plant. This one here is a heatless jalapeno. Or I don't know if it's heatless or really light heat. I'll have to try one here pretty soon and find out. But it's called the Tam jalapeno. And this one here is producing even more than the regular jalapeno. There's just a ton of peppers. Here, there's a good example right there of how they get crowded when they grow so much up against each other. This other jalapeno is just trying to grow, but it's having to grow around this other one here. So let's kind of loosen that up a little bit, move that there, give them a little more room to grow. Next to the Tam jalapeno, we've got a pepper I got from Patrice's Projects YouTube channel. And this is the New Mex Big Jim pepper seeds she sent me this last year. Really producing really well. Lots of pods coming up. A pretty actual short plant. We're getting lots of production off of it. So we'll see as the weather cools down just a little bit more whether this kind of bursts out and grows just a little bit more. Okay, and next to it, as you can see here, we got some damage. Yeah, it's kind of some sort of maybe even sun damage or something there. But it's still growing. We'll see what happens. We might just end up having to cut that off, still be able to use the pepper. This is our yellow monster. As you can see, really big pods that are just getting formed too. So still lots of growth left to go as they're ripening up. They'll ripen up to a nice large yellow color. Make sure we get all of them some room in there. We got lots of pods, lots more coming out. This is a really nice producer. Nice variety of a sweet bell pepper. And then let's go right back. I think we're left off right here next to the jalapeno. We've got this one here. Some seed I got from Ray, off of Ray's channel. He's got a seed shop that he started up this year. I'm going to put a link right down below to that. It's a little shop of seeds. This is a Pusa Jawala. Look at all these little stringy, like beans, pods, and just tons of them all over the plant. Lots of these. Now I'm not sure exactly what the heat level is on those, but really, really cool looking pods. Another cool plant. If you like, Ray offers his seeds for only 55 cents. Go head off to that seed shop there. Purchase some of these Pusa Jawalas for yourself to grow in your garden this next year. Next to that, we've got a red Marconi. In fact, one that's got some sort of fungal damage on there. We'll have to take that one off. It's not doing very well. But we've got a bunch of other really good pods just starting to ripen up here. Hey, look at this one. That's a big one right there. That's really nice. More forming, more pods coming up. But yeah, that's our pepper garden down here that we got growing this year. Everything's looking really, really great. We're getting production off of every single one of our plants. So this garden's doing really, really well in this spot. Although I have to think about taking maybe some of these ones on the end and maybe moving them up this way in this space here, as it's starting to shade out a little bit more as the sun is starting to head down. We're heading towards fall. Summer's only got a little more time to go.
So all right, there we go. We're out here today just trying to beat the heat, getting our 2019 summer garden tour finished. As you can tell with the zucchini and the cucumbers, they're just limping over here, just trying to get through the heat of the day. I think when I started this video, it was just under 100 degrees. And now I think it's approaching around 102, 103 degrees and climbing. So it's a really, really hot one today, but we did get through and get to take a great look and finish out our summer garden tour with part 2 and look at our tomatoes and our peppers and all the great, amazing different varieties that we're growing in the gardens this year. We've got some really good fruits that are going to be coming up here soon. So this is just pretty much an update video when it comes to them. We'll be looking at a lot of harvests coming up here as we go into the fall and we move in towards our fall gardening, all of that. But everything looks really, really great for how we got started this year. And as I mentioned in the first part 1 of the garden tour, I mentioned about how, you know, we're just kind of checking out and seeing how things are going. I'm really encouraged by the outcomes that I'm seeing, but you know, just making notes and taking notes so that hopefully this next garden season will have an even better garden grow. So hopefully you know, we'll see plenty of really, really great successes to come here in future episodes, and I hope you all follow along with those with me. And you know, you can hit that bell notification right next to the subscribe button if you haven't hit that already too, so you can follow along and see some of those really great episodes that we got coming up here real soon. I'm about ready to take a little break and head off to the National Heirloom Expo, as I've mentioned already, and that's going to be a really great time for us. We're going to get some really great content and also go meet up and visit with some YouTube gardeners and see how they're doing this year and how their gardens have been growing. So we've got some really fun content, really great content for you all to check in on as we got more episodes coming up. But for this episode, what I really want you to do is hit that like button too. Just give it a big thumbs up, because this is a great garden year that we're having. Even though we didn't get to the best start, it's all looking really great. And if you have any comments, questions, or any concerns, or anything at all about anything that we're growing here, if you want to know any information about what I got growing, where I got seeds, anything like that, if you got any sort of questions or comments, hit me up in that comment section down below. I really would love to hear from each and every one of you who are watching this video today. On that note, we're going to see you all on our very next episode. That's good. Some degrees. At least 101, 102. Wow. It's still gonna get hotter too. Trying to hang in there, did a really good job, and alright, it's the heat. This is gonna make, it's probably gonna make a really great blooper reel with all this. Okay. Alright, take 3 or 4. Okay. We got someone about ready to pull in, so we'll wait a minute. So, we're just out here today. Oh gosh. I really had a good go there, man, for a second. But we made it through a really great take another break. We'll go for take 4. Please hit me up in that comment section down below. That's not it either. You know, so keep an eye out for I'm messing that up. So please let me know down below. And on that note, dang, I'm really messing this one up. All again on our very it's getting really hot, and I'm making a lot of mistakes.